Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is RetiredOrphan. Today, I'm going to be showing you how to make a mid-tempo track, like start to finish, how to get drums going, how to get an intro going, how to get the sound design right, how to get the atmosphere right. Now, this is going to be more along the side of like dark mid-tempo, so if you're into that melodic shit, well, you're out of luck. There's a little bit of melodic stuff in here, but for the most part, it's very dark and evil. If you're looking to make melodic mid-tempo, I'd suggest watching a different tutorial. And I'm going to be using my track Error from my album Destroy the Machine. If you haven't heard it, here's a little clip of that. Hope you guys liked that. If you want to hear more of that, the album link will be down in the description below. It's on Spotify, Apple Music, SoundCloud. Yes, I released it on SoundCloud after 2 years of not releasing anything on there. And it's been going okay. I'm not sure if I'm going to stay on there yet, but I'm considering it. So I'm going to be taking this chronologically. So we're going to start with the intro. So a very, very big, important part of mid-tempo is setting your atmosphere. The intro is one of the most crucial parts of mid-tempo. You got to kind of learn how to set it. And this track is a little bit different with how it does this intro because it kind of flips it on its head and then changes in the build-up. But it does have a slightly evil atmosphere. And I'm going to show you why. Okay, so this chord progression we're using, I'll just grab the chords from this this little piano part that I played in. So obviously the first little hint of like evil atmosphere here is those little glitches that you can hear. I believe if we look at the piano, little soft piano here. So I have Fracture on a very, I believe I'm automating Fracture's dry wet. Yeah, right here. And that way its glitches are at a very low volume. It's not the entire piano. You just kind of hear them come in a little bit because without this, it's just this. And yeah, Big Crush piano is cool, it's kind of evil, it kind of sets the atmosphere, feels kind of sad and somber, but the glitches add a lot of texture, and that's why it's very important to add these little textures to your music so it keeps the listener engaged. Because imagine this whole thing without this piano. The piano sets the mood of this track. It's dark, it's sad, it's mildly evil, it's perfect for this intro. The next thing that's very important is now to layer on this piano. You might have heard a couple of these layers when I played it without it. We got the choir. Just a nice female choir, just to kind of maybe bring some nice light textures on top. Now the next thing, we're going to talk a little bit of theory here. Specifically, we're going to talk modes. This was when I was learning about Phrygian, and I'm not totally following it here, but I'm kind of including the idea of F Phrygian. This is kind of my weird mixture. This might be a mode that exists, but at least for me, it's a mixture of F harmonic minor and F Phrygian. F harmonic minor is the F minor scale, except for this D sharp right here, or E flat right here. It says D sharp, but it's really an E flat in the F minor scale, becomes an E natural. So that way you get that nice, like kind of Middle Eastern sound. Let me just play it for you. I decided to combine that with F Phrygian, which sounds like this. Now, Phrygian is cool and it sounds evil, but in my opinion, as it goes up, it kind of sounds more majory. I don't really like that. So I decided, what if I combine that with harmonic minor? So we get this. So yeah, that was kind of the little idea I had, and I don't think it's exactly started with this track, but I believe this was the first track where I finally understood what I was doing with modes, and I kind of played with it a little bit. Already tried to see if I could break the rules a little bit, which is fun, but you got to learn the rules first to break them, because otherwise you'll break them the wrong way. So yeah, we've got that choir, and then we've got these chords right here. It's just a little pad sound, you know, make things all nice. Just fill out some space. Kind of 80s. There's a little bit 80s. What did I even make these in? Made these in a serum. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I think I meant to automate the filter on them, and I just didn't. And then to continue filling this atmosphere, we continue to layer more stuff. This is a very crucial thing to keep your listener engaged. Be sure to have layers in your music. Oh, I will point out this project is big, but that's because of my way of organizing things. Some people tend to be a little less organized and tend to have things in the same patterns. So a lot of people that say, oh, my tracks only get to like 30 playlist tracks. How do yours get to fucking 84? And really, I do a lot of automation. And as I said before, I don't tend to have things in the same patterns. So that tends to stack up. Here we have this little gated synth to add some atmosphere. So you might notice here, the synth is like going back and forth in the left and right ear. Now I don't play too much with panning. It's not really my thing, but here, actually I think this is a delay that's doing it. Yeah. So this is a gatekeeper preset, and because without it just sounds like this. Not really usable. So I turned it into this. So it's kind of a ping pong delay, and it's just subtly, you know, moving it around the stereo field. And that way, it just creates this depth and atmosphere in the song. I did this auto panning, like if we look at it in Ozone Imager. You can see it just kind of bounce around, and it just fills the listener with a sense of space. And this is a pretty hard pan. I usually don't do this, but it worked in this sense. And occasionally the reverb kind of fills in the center. Let me just not play the glitches there quite yet. We're not there yet. Don't want to spoil anything. And then to continue the development of the song, I created these two plucks. Kind of played around with this whole F harmonic minor Phrygian idea. And it's just two layers. You got this one, a little bit more tonal, kind of adds some more like timbre to the sound. And then we got this one, which kind of feels more like a bell, but also kind of square wavy. And I think together they create this really nice atmosphere. All right, so I'm certain if you haven't heard this track yet, there is a very abrupt transition right here. Like, and I don't do it immediately. I let the glitches flow in. No emotions. The song's gonna get a little bit, as I said, this is a big project. No emotions. So, what's happening right here is I've I created this glitch swell. So basically what I did, like if I solo each and every one of these sounds. First, this one, I just wanted to see what would happen if I put a sound, because Manipulator tends to freak out when you put a sound that is like chords, like multiple notes into Manipulator, and just see what it would do. That's kind of all I did to the choir, and it kind of just worked. It like kind of struggles to attach to this note, which I think is a really cool quality. Oh yeah, we also had some strings layering underneath those little plucks there. And they start to get a little bit more glitched. Which I think is really cool. By the way, if you have not picked up this plugin right here, Fracture, there's another one that comes with it that Glitch Machines make called Hysteresis. Pick them up. They're amazing. They can just create awesome glitches, as you can hear. So definitely pick those up if you have not. The soft piano pretty much just becomes 100%. Kind of just became 100% Fracture at that point. And then these all get glitched out. You get the point. Like, I'm just layering all these glitch sounds together. And then to help with that, I kind of put a little bit of a glitch before this. Where is it? Hang on. So kind of just like, as you can hear, wait, something's bugging out on me. Some of the glitch plugins can sometimes just start to self-oscillate. But got that nice little glitch right there, and it kind of just like brings us into this weird glitch moment.
No emotions.
So basically, the effect that I'm trying to create here, we got this text-to-speech voice.
No.
Because this originally was just this.
No emotions.
That's literally what this vocal used to be, and I turned it into this.
No emotions.
So for this little section right here, as we said, we had that little glitch here, and then in between, because I had to create this like vocal pause and kind of wanted to make it sound a little glitchy, so I layered in this glitch, which I think that's just a stem that I had of glitches. And then we got this one after he says emotions. So it just is this consistent glitch effect that carries the sound, because without these,
No emotions.
which it works, but it needs stuff in between it.
No emotions.
All right, so I'm going to show you how I made this vocal, because something that I've seen a lot in these tunes is they tend to have some sort of vocal. Not every tune does it, but in my case, we had this.
No emotions.
So as we know, it's text-to-speech. So it starts out with a vocal synth.
No emotions.
So you've just got all these vocoder layers. You got BioVox, Vocoder, CompuVox, TalkBox, and even Polyvox. Layer a little bit, pitched down, but I layered a little bit of the original. I turned down the performance by -7.
No emotions.
That way it's a little bit bassier. And then I compressed it.
No emotions.
And then I did some EQ because it needed so much high end.
No emotions.
And then gave it reverb. This gives it a really nice atmosphere. But I didn't want to give it too much.
No emotions.
Just give it some space. I didn't want to give it too much because I didn't want this tail, and I kind of wanted that glitchy effect to stay on. So if I had this big tail, I'd have to tape stop it, and that'd just be a pain in the butt.
No emotion. No.
And it does its job.
Emotion.
And then once again,
No.
this way, we got no bass frequencies really conflicting with anything. And then we got this wider.
No emotions.
Make it like much more stereo because it needed it.
No emotions.
And then we've got this compressor. This is a free compressor. You just heard the difference it just made.
No emotions. No emotions.
It just adds this really nice quality that I love. And then,
no. Emotions,
so what I did here is I wanted to kind of tame the stereo low end of this vocals. That way it wasn't all like weird. And so, you know, I kind of did this like very mild high pass here. And then once again, just boosting those highs because the vocal is so dark.
no. Emotions,
And then I believe,
no. Emotions,
and then I just did some like manual de-essing here. And yeah, that's the vocal. That's just kind of how you can create these really cool vocals with something as simple as text-to-speech.
No. Emotions.
Like, something that stupid sounding gets turned into this.
no. Emotions,
This is also what I did in my track Emotions Are Obsolete. I did a very similar thing to this. All right, so into the build. Now we're going to talk about tension. So a lot of people have asked me, how do you create the builds you do? Because a lot of people have taken notice that I'm able to create. I really hate talking like this because I kind of feel like a dick, but I can create like good builds that have a lot of tension. So usually what I like doing is I like having some sort of big impact sound. So for instance, I found that sound, which is so cool. I did not do anything to this thing except EQ it a little bit. Okay, a lot. Because it was a little bit bass heavy, and I kind of want to tame that for this song. And then just control stereo a little bit because it got a little bit wide. But it was just such a cool sample, and it adds just a really nice impact. So we got all of these impacts right here. Like, effects are a very important part of just a song in general. So first we got that one. Just a nice, kind of brings in some high end into these hits. And then we've got this one, which also has a brass in there. So that makes a really nice layer with this. And then we got this one. Kind of just more low and bottom. And reversing into that, we just have these two. So I believe this one is just a reversed impact, and this one is some bass effects that I think I just reversed. And it created that cool shit. All right, so building tension. Now that we have the impact, you got to get the listener's notice. And the first thing to do when you're making a build up is tease the drop. So in this case, we got this. So I kind of high pass this in because if I didn't do this, it'd kind of be conflicting with those impact sounds. And it was really messy. So I kind of had to kind of tease it in. Something else I did here is I just took like a saw wave and distorted it because I didn't want to tease the main bass in this drop. I kind of wanted that tonality that bass has to be a surprise. So I kind of just did a distorted saw wave here. And then we got this pad here. This kind of does a sort of melody, but it's a lot more evil. Like, the mood of this track has kind of gone from like kind of sad, somber, maybe kind of evil to just evil. It's like basically the story of this track when it comes to the album is the person under testing in the album artwork is starting to feel emotion, and then it glitches back to normality. Well, normality, quote unquote. So that's why it says no emotions. So yeah, it's just, I like building story in my song, and I think that's a really important part of building atmosphere is just having an idea in mind that you want to tell and create. And usually, if you can create that idea good enough, it is visible in your music and it draws people's attention. So you got this little pad kind of just going from F to G flat or F sharp, whatever tickles your fancy. And then it kind of focuses more on F, as we build up. And then we've got another big and important thing, obviously, with the buildup is risers. So we got this riser. This one's kind of my more effect riser. I believe I made this in massive, yes. So I don't know if I've talked about my massive trick before, but I'm going to explain it again because I think it's a cool little trick. So that's the first riser. But basically what you do is, I've already done it here, obviously. But what you do is you go to oscillator, up 24, down 24. Set your envelope to be something like this. A little bit of a tag since, you're making a riser. If you're in FL, be sure to set your pitch up to 24 because this is where you're going to automate your pitch in massive. And then you set LFO5 to this position, LFO6 to this position, and LFO7 to this position. And then what you do, go to global, press all of these buttons, and press random. Congratulations, you have a unique riser that no one's ever made before. And then, I believe I layered that riser with another riser, which I believe kind of like more cinematic, kind of industrial. Made this one in Harmer. Got some vibrato going. I think I'm actually automating my vibrato speed. Maybe? I can't tell. No, so what I did was I started automating my tremolo speed. And I just brought up the frequency. It's very like cinematic. I just love it. All right. And now we've got, I call this build up. This is basically just my drums. So I layered in an amen break here, going super fast. But then, vocal effect. So basically what this is, it's kind of making people think, oh, this is going to be either breakcore or someone else thought it was maybe going to be drum and bass. So I kind of just teased that idea a little bit here. And it's kind of unusual for a song around this BPM to do the like double time build up first. Usually that happens in the second drop, especially in 90 BPM mid-tempo tunes. Because usually, like, if someone starts doing double time, that usually means they're going to go into DMB. But here, it's just kind of used to build this, like, really intense tension. All right, before we talk about the drop, this vocal, so this one was made with my voice. Here's the original file. Error. Sounds stupid, but I basically layered it a bunch. I believe the only automation here, yeah, just some tape stops so that way the reverb doesn't go on. But basically, we got this one. Wait, no, this one. Error. And then this one. Error. That one's interesting. Error. Got another vocal synth. So I'm gonna take these one by one. The reason why I layered these vocals is because by themselves they really didn't fulfill what I wanted them to, and I kind of just kept doing different things until I got this like massive vocals that just sounded cool. Error. It's just like all these different voices hitting kind of slightly different pitches, and it just feels cool. So, starting with this one. Error. So I think the first thing I did was auto-tune it. Error. Yes. Just did some Foreman shifting, and then I think I used Kilohertz's Foreman filter to just find somewhere. Error. Error. Just give it a little bit of Foreman quality. Then we went to manipulator. Error. And it kind of already just sounded distorted. So I was like, well, first, let's just compress it, Error. Compress it a lot. And then let's distort the shit out of it. Error. Then compress it. Error. Kind of try and bring up these two sections. And then error. Give it that nice big vocal. and then tape stop,
error,
and then just some EQ.
error,
Just kind of tame the low end a little bit. The main reason I didn't boost the high end is because I plan on doing maybe some other layers to fulfill those parts.
error,
So this one is a vocoder, kind of the same thing. Just I tend to use all these layers when I do like these kind of vocals because it usually always just sounds nice, and then distort them.
error,
Already just sounds really cool.
error,
So nice multi-band compression.
error, error,
Got that nice big reverb. Tape stop.
error, error,
And this one, as you can tell, fulfills a lot more high end. So now we got these two vocals.
error,
This one is really weird. I put on some resonators to make an F minor chord, which turned out really weird
error,
and kind of distorted.
error,
You know, add a little bit of form and filter. I didn't kind of do it all the way. Then we got some reverb.
error, error,
And then obviously had to tape stop that because of that little resonator ring.
error,
Had to tame a frequency right here. It was super harsh and just painful.
error,
This one's a lot more metallic. And I don't know. For me, it just really fits in with the album artwork because, like, I don't know, there's a bunch of computers around. So, you know, you'd figure there'd be something metallic sounding. And then finally, this one.
error,
This one's kind of a more simple layer. I don't think, doesn't really sound like I used even all the layers in here. Yeah, I didn't use Polyvox or Biovox. Just kind of Talkbox, CompuVox, and Vocoder. So, and then I just distorted it a little bit, compressed it a little bit, not a lot.
error, error,
This one's kind of just
error,
meant to add just a little bit more texture, and then all together,
error,
they create that weird monstrosity. And then, you know, just bringing back this plugin again, you know, distorting it a little bit more than the default, then just some compression,
error,
and then some final EQ.
error,
And that's how you make really weird distorted mid-tempo vocals, is just do weird. This seems like really stupid advice, but just do some weird things. Just fiddle around with, I don't know, maybe a text-to-speech vocal or your own voice and see where you get. Now, obviously, having plugins like Manipulator, Fracture can really help you in your journey with creating these types of vocals. Definitely get a vocoder if you're planning on creating mid-tempo vocals. Usually tend to have that, especially if you're shooting for that maybe Res 1788L style. I personally just kind of make what I want to make, but if you really want to make like closer to their kind of music, go for it. Try your best to emulate that if you want to. Now we're going to get into pretty much what everyone came for, and why this video was even requested in the first place was the drop. So as you know, we got this little build up right here.
error,
And then we got the switch up. Kind of wanted to do something that kind of like teased the mid-tempo flow. Kind of felt a little hip-hoppy and groovy, which this whole track is just a groove. And I'm going to talk about groove in just a second. First important thing about groove is getting your percussion tight and it just hits. Now, luckily with mid-tempo, that isn't super hard. Unless you're doing like a track like Hellraiser by Blank where, you know, you got some like offbeat sort of hip-hoppy shit. You usually just have kick, snare, 2 and 4, or clap, snare on 2 and 4, and then just kick the whole time. But I'm going to talk about drums here because drums are important with flow. So, one of the big important parts of flow is creating a nice hi-hat groove. A lot of mid-tempo tracks, what they tend to do is the first 4 bars, they kind of cut out the hi-hats and just half kick and snare, which is a really cool effect. I do it myself too a lot. But it can also be cool to just start with that fast groove because hi-hats kind of feel like they're picking up the song. And that can, if you do that in your song, it can kind of already feel like, oh, this song's going. It depends on how the song just flows. In this song, it didn't really work cutting out the hi-hats because I tried that and it just didn't work. For the drums, I'm going to talk about the layering real quick. So we got these like acoustic cymbals. I use Pro R here because it's very close to like kind of sounding like a real reverb. And I kind of wanted to emulate that. And then kick, very important mid-tempo. I'm going to talk about the claps in a second. I do tend to do my kicks differently nowadays. I've kind of leaned more towards using the aggressive style in Pro L2. I also use a new plugin that's free called Blanca. I don't think it'll work on this kick because this kick's already just distorted, but this thing is such a good plugin and I've been using it a lot. But I do think that this is a good kick. So I'm basically I'm saturating the kick. Interesting. I usually don't do that. But I guess here it works. And then we got a little bit of transient shaping. Then I believe what I also did on this kick, because it kind of had a long tail, I kind of just, shortened that a little bit. Then just did some EQ. Got that low end really strong on this kick because I wanted it to pierce through this track. And then right here is a little bit just too harsh on the ear, so I kind of just tamed that up. And then I just clipped it. Clipping your kicks is very important. You want your drums to be hitting at this consistent volume so that unless you're doing maybe like an acoustic track or maybe you have like a fill, but for your main kick and snare in an EDM track, you want that to be consistent. Otherwise, it kind of tends to like fluctuate in when it hits. Be sure to also have good sidechain as well. Like for this track, this sidechain worked. Usually I do a little bit of a harder sidechain, but here it worked. All right, I'm gonna talk about the claps now. So first I got this clap, which is kind of the clap everyone hears. So basically what I'm doing here, I got a little bit of attack here. So that way, we kind of lose trains in a little bit so the kick transient shines. And then I'm completely cutting off audio as soon as the sustain is done. Because it kind of gives that like industrial clap feel where it's just like it just cuts. I didn't make it a little bit smoother because just 100% just sounded weird. I used the skate to do that. Kind of learned that trick. I initially tried that trick in Emotions Are Obsolete and it just worked beautifully. So I did it again in this track. Just some basic clap EQ. Added a little bit of transient back because it kind of took everything away because without this, it needs a little bit of punch. All right, then we got just this clap for some basic layering. Just add a little bit more sizzle to as you can see, I added like the fuzz option on this saturator. It's Saturator by Killhearts, really good saturator. And I just kind of wanted to create this thing to add some just some buzz to the clap because it was kind of lacking in that department. So I kind of EQ'd out this area and just boosted this up a little bit. So, it just fulfills where this clap's lacking. And together they just work beautifully. And then with the kick, all right. Didn't really have to do, usually I do way more hi-hat layering, but because we already had like the cymbal doing a hi-hat thing, these cymbals over here, I figured why not just have maybe just one hi-hat in there. And then we got a little ride in here on 1, 2, 3, and 4 to just layer our big hits. Oh, this is also before I did my drum saturation. Another thing I also do on my buses is I also saturate my drums now. It just allows me to give them just more power to them. But this track really didn't need that. So that worked out. All right. So now that you've got your drums done, you've got your groove going. Might be a little bit different. Maybe you got some more hi-hats. Maybe you got some hi-hats doing this. Which at this tempo might not work, but maybe at a 90 BPM tune that might work. Here, this is kind of the flow that I liked. I was like, okay, now I got to create the synth line that kind of flows with this. So I kind of created this synth. And and then it flows into this part. Created this nice little synth line. And then I change it as the track goes on, so that way the track just constantly feels like it's developing and changing, which is very important in your drop. You don't want to just feel like the same thing over and over again. The same thing over and over again can be cool sometimes. Like this drop does, like it is still repetitive because you want it to stay in the same groove. You don't want it to be too complicated. But at the same time, you got to keep it fresh. You got to keep going and going. That's why like every maybe 2 bars in this track, something's happening. And I really like that. Because if it was just this bass, it'd be cool, but it wouldn't carry the song. So, you gotta throw other things in there too. I kind of created this little synth line. And it's already got this like sort of syncopated groove to it, which I really liked. Together with the kick and snare, ooh, it flows. Like, as soon as I heard those two together, I knew what my groove was. How do you know your groove? This isn't really like a set answer. Groove is something that you feel. It's not really something that you know. I started like, doing the thing, just started bobbing my head into the track, and that's just kind of how I knew. I found my groove. It was easy to dance to. It was easy to just vibe and flow to. That's how you know you found your groove. I just had this simple 4-bar loop of these basses, and it just worked. It just felt natural to me. What I definitely recommend, if you want to find your groove, like just dance in your chair to your song. Just like kind of vibe to it like a normal listener would. Trust me, this works. And if anything makes you pause, change it. Because that's not natural groove. It breaks your flow, and it'll break your general listener's flow. You got to put yourself in the mind of the general listener, because otherwise you're not going to catch these things. Now, right before we get into sound design, I'm going to talk about the importance of having a powerful sub bass in mid-tempo. So my sub bass patch is really simple. I literally use a sub bass preset in every patch. I create a little bit of pitch envelope, just give it a little bit more of like fall into it. So it kind of just feels like there's a little bit more punch to the bass. And I believe I just put a bandpass filter on this sine wave to create some harmonics, added some harmonics to this sine wave as well. Just some simple stuff. And then I put OTT on it. So OTT kind of brings in this like high-end hiss, but it also like makes those harmonics stronger. And that's the first key thing. Next thing I do, change the color and the fuzz. And then I low pass that like a lot. So we just get some nice harmonics. This curve is called Fletcher-Munson. So basically what I'm doing here is I'm EQing up. I was taught this by Shroomhead1 and the Whittler. Very cool dudes. Definitely recommend checking them out. What you do here, you EQ up your lowest note of the song, which I'm doing here and here. Just kind of keep it a little bit balanced. And then you EQ down your highest note in the song, so that way your sub sounds an equal volume. That's simple. It's called Fletcher-Munson. Google it if you want to. It's a very useful thing to understand in music production, and it will change the way your sub works. Now we're talking about sound design. So, obviously this bass is kind of the main star of this drop. So I'm going to go through how I made it. So we start off with this. Weren't expecting it to stem from that, were you? It's not really a good sound. So I kind of just took this like kind of saw wave, kind of triangle wave thing. Then I FM'd it with this kind of weird shape. And then I FM'd that with a sine wave. And then this is an octave up. And then I FM'd that with another sine wave that was also an octave up. And that just created this sound. And then what I did was I added it to this filter with the help of this envelope controller, just create a little envelope curve for the filter. And then I heard the potential of this bass. As soon as I put on that filter, I was like, oh, this could be something cool. So what I did next was I put it into Serum Effects, kind of did my usual mid-tempo bass processing. So I kind of do a little bit of hyper, a little bit of dimension, and then I add a phaser, you know, just kind of create this interesting movement. So like with just hyper. Then with the phaser, kind of adds this talk to the bass, which I think is really cool. Chorus to give it some more, like, just kind of layer it up. And then diode distortion. So these 3 distortions, diode 2, tube, and stomp box, are very useful distortions for mid-tempo. Tube is the obvious one, but diode 2 you kind of have to tame in. As you can see, my drive is not that high up. And it's already like so distorted. And then what you want to do in order to kind of like bring out that high end in that bass, I kind of put on an OTT. And this bass already feels mean, but this is my sound personally. I really like distorting things. I know some people don't like that about me. They think I distort things too much. I disagree. Distortion's cool. Fuck you. And then we saturate that. And then we compress that a lot. Then we put reverb on it to give it some space. That reverb adds so much to this bass. And then it needs some EQing. And then just limit it. And congratulations, you have yourself a nice mid-tempo plucked bass. All right, this bass here. So this was a weird one. So I was trying to create like more of a saw type, like you can see I have saw wave right here. Saw wave kind of just like normal plucked bass, like in the one in Shutdown, for example. But what ended up happening, I kind of ended up getting this weird, like super distorted sound. It's more in the post-processing. I tend to do a lot of my sound design post-processing. But basically what I'm doing here, let's start it from the ground up. So this one's automating a filter, this little LFO right here, kind of more using it as an envelope. Got the saw wave here. It's FMing from this weird waveform that's getting that's got bend plus on it. It's in this position. I don't know where this waveform's from. I know it's not one that's in Serum. As far as I know, it might be. I genuinely don't remember. I made this track like 5 months ago. And then we've got this noise, which is being automated down. I did not put it in the filter because I wanted the noise to shine in this. And then I put a hyper into it. Give it some nice stereo. Give it some talk. Make it all nice and layered. This one kind of sounds more like comb filtery. And then this kind of brought out that really distorted nature that I was like, okay, I can work with this. And then after all this, there's a lot of processing on this bass, by the way. Got some OTT and just bring some stuff up. Then we've got this distortion, so that way it sounds like nice and fat. And then speaking of fat, saturator. And because I said this needed more saturation, I put M saturator on it. Melodic plugins are kind of weird. Like the UI, no offense to you guys if someone happens to be watching this from the Melda team. The UI is not great, but the plugins just are so powerful, which I really appreciate. So I'm honestly willing to get over the kind of mediocre UI. And then I kind of made the mid stronger, brought out that high end, then compressed it. Then I put Fab Filter Saturn on it. Kind of had these two layers, so up here, kind of just distorted this low end, made it nice and fat. And then up here, I'm doing gentle saturation. Kind of adds a little bit more hit to the bass. And then bringing up the high end, but also making sure to keep these two frequencies tamed. And then I put a Maximus on this. Now, I really don't use this compressor that often. I know a lot of people in the FL community love this compressor, and it's a good compressor, but I don't know, not personally for me. I just kind of kept low and a little bit under control. Didn't really do much with these. And then I just boosted it and compressed it down a little bit. And then in Patcher, there were a couple too strong frequencies in here, and then I just controlled it stereo because it was a little bit too wide. I know mid-tempo is meant to sound like this really complex like form of glitches, but when you break it down in these really simple steps, it's just these really rudimentary things. And then this bass, this next bass, I had to render out because it had a really weird like delayed click and it was messing with the song. So I just rendered it out. So this is basically a noise bass. It's right here. There we go. Took me a second to find it. But as you can hear, there was like some weird like things going on. So I kind of just wanted to remove that. And I just resampled it. So what this sounds like by itself. So first what I did to the bass is I put OTT on it. Some EQ. I did this notch filter here, so that way it kind of creates this nice neuro texture. And then I put Isotope Trash 2 on it. Very good distortion for neuro sounds. Just kind of created this little waveform with the busted really distorting it. And then saturating it, EQing it, boosting its gain, and then putting tape stop on it. And then some final EQ to kind of tame things up. And then I put Patcher on it, but that mess up was happening. Put Patcher with just kind of keeping those high ends more boosted, limiter on it, and then just controlling some stereo. But then after I resampled it, I kind of just did some basic EQ on it, nothing super special, and then I just limited it. I'm also boosting it a little bit in the limiter, give it some more energy. If you're curious on how I make a noise bass, usually what I am doing is I take sine wave and noise and I just distort it. But for this one, it's a little bit different. This one has a little phaser. It's got this distortion was so intense, such an intense distortion. It just crunches the sound, which I love. And then, because without this distortion, I don't know, it's not as cool. Then EQ, hyper, chorus. And that's how you kind of make noise bass. I usually make my noise basses in Phase Plant now because this preset for some other reason started bugging out and was doing that weird glitch that you've seen. So you've got your groove down. Now how do we build that groove? Because if you're starting to feel something, you want to build on that. So usually what I do on the start of it, I kind of layered in this crash cymbal. I've been starting to use crashes more because they kind of are a nice effect. I don't know why. I kind of had a little vendetta against them for a while. It was weird. On top here, we got these nice little like screeches. I kind of took a little bit of inspiration from like sort of trappy stuff. And I put a comb filter on just a saw wave. Hyper, kind of increasing the size here. A little bit of a flanger, phaser to add that talk. Some chorus, multiband distortion, diode distortion, believe it or not. And then some EQ. And then out here, so that reverb adds so much. Then I'm OTTing it after the reverb. Doing some EQ, distortion, compression, and then just tape stopping it. Kind of wanted that tail kind of sound cool. Normally I don't do that, but for here, it worked. Next up is glitches. Now, I don't know where this is from. I don't remember how I made this glitch, but it was kind of just a glitch stem that I had that I just cut into this project. But usually now what I do with glitches is I take 27 OTTs and 2 gates and a patcher. The 2 gates are to prevent the OTTs from self-oscillating because they do that. And I just put like kicks and snares in them and it just creates glitches. It's very cool. I learned that from Excellent Sound. All right, so now what I do here is I kind of do a little fill here. Kind of throw in that, it's the same thing. I made it a different sound because different track because I processed it differently. But now what I'm doing here is I'm changing the flow. It's a similar flow, but it's different. Like if you look at the sub, like this is the original one. And then this one is. It's just a little bit of a different flow. And it kind of switches what the main bass is in this drop. All right. We are now out of the first drop. It literally took me an hour to talk about just this. There's so much to talk about. This track is so layered. So, a very important thing, especially in bass music, when you're getting out of your drop, you don't want to lose that like sense of tempo and energy. So, what I did here is I had this third clap right here, which is just like a bandpass clap that I had. Yeah, just a bandpass clap just around where the transient of the clap is. And it just kind of like keeps the audience grooving. It keeps them going. It keeps them kind of dancing. It keeps them bobbing their heads. Because without it, if I just mute these, it needs something to keep that momentum going. This is also especially nice for DJs if they want to like transition out of your song. This is kind of like a nice section for them to do that. So now, what I'm doing here, going back to music theory, I'm introducing a slightly different chord progression. So now it is this. So basically what I'm going to is a F minor chord to a G flat minor chord, and then I'm going to another F minor chord, and then I'm going to an E diminished. It just kind of results in this really evil sound. All right, so for the ARP, kind of filtered it in here. You also got this like nice low Reese. Just kind of keep the low end alive in the track a little bit. Then we got these nice little like string plucks. And together those make a really like cool layer. Again, layering's important in your songs. It adds detail and texture. So what I did some different things in this build up. Once again, same impacts. But now we got this ARP in here. We got the string doing the same ARP pattern. And then we've got the pad rising, and it's all on F now. Like this thing's pretty much all on F. And then we got this thing. It's doing a new groove. And then what I'm doing here with the build-up drums, I'm now not doing the double time anymore. I'm going into regular time. So what I did here, I kind of also changed up that little switch up too, so that way it's just a little bit different. That's very important to do, you know, change up your fills. But the reason why I did here is because the second drop had a really like almost kind of half-time groove, even though it stays in like full time, but it feels different, and I wanted the build-up to say, hey, this is going to be different. And as well with this groove here that this distorted sound wave is teasing, it also like this whole build-up's telling you, hey, things are going to be a little bit different this time. And they are very different, because this drop is, whoo boy. So for this little vocal effect here, I just repeated one singular wave a bunch for all of these sounds. And my CPU does not like it. Hold up. There we go. That was weird. So, first of all, we've created a new groove with the drums. So it's just kind of like some more kicks in there to kind of accent things. Maybe a little bit more glitch hoppy. And this kind of follows the rhythm of the bass pattern here. So if you want to make this distorted monstrosity, and I know you do, because a lot of people were asking about this bass. So this is a preset I had. This is kind of a more basic sound. Let me take this off. So basically what I did here is I took a square wave, start from the very beginning, and then I just FM'd it with some random wavetable I found, and then I'm also FMing that wavetable with the noise, which I usually don't do. It was kind of a new thing. Then I also layered in a saw wave for the sub here, and then I'm putting it into hyper. Not doing any dimension this time. Phaser for some talk. Kind of just creating a little dip right here. And then distortion galore. And then we're going to OTT it. Saturator it. Give it back that low end power. Saturate it, EQ it, EQ it again, and then just keep it tamed. And that's how you make just the distorted mid-tempo bass. It's just FM, usually a square wave from something different. Just that usually gives the best texture. Layer some things underneath it. Diode distortion's your best friend. Use a phaser for some talk. Maybe a chorus for layering. That's usually just how I do it. And then I just saturate it and maybe distort it some more in the effects chain. Be sure to just watch your stereo. Very important. Congratulations, you have a mid-tempo bass. If you've noticed, if you go to the sub here, so something that mid-tempo tends to depend on a lot on are syncopated rhythms. So specifically this and this. That's really where you get your groove in mid-tempo. Now by itself it sounds a little weird, but when the kicks fill in and everything else, it works. It just works perfectly. So that's not the only thing I introduced new into this drop. We got this little glitch sample here, which is really cool. I don't know, it sounded cool to me. I think I just distorted it a lot. Yeah. Because that's how it sounded like by itself. And then we got this weird thing. Which, I don't even remember what this is. It's just like this weird patch I created. And it just has a lot of reverb on it. A lot of distortion, a lot of comb filtering, some phase distortion. Goes out this. Phase distortion kind of is what gives it its sound. And then I had to put tape stop on it. And then I just distorted it. Like so. If we take this one by one. First we got OTT, which is really loud. And I tried to EQ it. And I leveling tooled it. And this thing really compressed it. Then we got hysteresis. Kind of created some nice little glitches. Saturator, because this thing didn't need to be any louder. And tape stop. Keep it under control. And then just some basic EQ. And congratulations, we have this like really nice high-end glitch to work with. So, a lot of the stuff in this drop is new, but if you notice, I'm kind of sneaking in some stuff from the first drop. We got this bass in here again. And now we also had originally this bass. And then this was a fill that I really liked. So also every single like start of 4 bars, we also have this like crash, kind of just making it more intense. It just makes that first hit when it's about to introduce a new like thing on 2 and 4 just more powerful. And then here, probably my favorite fill. I kind of took out the kick here. Did I also take out the kick on the hits? No, so I kept the kick on the clap hits, but when it's by itself, it's just not there. I don't know, it just worked. And then I also created this saw wave. Kind of also a little bit more from some trappy inspirations. And then bring back this. So this is a look on how I made my track Error. I hope it also gave you some insight on like kind of how to create a mid-tempo track, or at least how I go about making a mid-tempo track. I definitely think mid-tempo is one of those genres where I think it's important for you to create something that you want to create a mid-tempo. Don't just try to like, oh, I'm going to sound like 178L here. I'm going to sound like blank. If you want to create mid-tempo, I think it's important to sound like you. And yes, having inspirations is good, but don't let that be your sole driving force when creating a mid-tempo track. Anyways, I hope this video helped in some way, but yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope it was useful in some way. Be sure to check out Destroy the Machine in the description below, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!